Today we are diving deep into the world of generative AI, focusing how businesses can use it intelligently, the security risks involved, and the practical utility of AI agents.
So first and foremost, if you're going to use some form of generative AI, it's a black box, right? If you just push anything into it, you're going to get anything out of it. So from a security perspective, let's say, for example, I'm looking at medical records for Tony and Rob. When I ask the question, I want to make sure that only the Tony records are going in.
Rob, you shared a personal anecdote about your family doctor using an AI scribe. Let's explore how that illustrates the meaningful impact of well-implemented technology.
To me personally, I think is like really amazing. And this, to the point of that story, I went to my family doctor and have a lot of clinicians, a lot of physicians that actually have access to AI Scribe.
Hi there, business owners and tech leaders. Are you exploring the potential of generative AI? Remember, intelligent implementation and a strong focus on data security are crucial for maximizing its benefits and mitigating risks. This is Kripa Anand, and welcome to the CanadianSME Small Business Podcast, where we explore the cutting-edge technologies and strategies that empower Canadian businesses to thrive in this digital age. Today, we are diving deep into the world of generative AI, focusing how businesses can use it intelligently, the security risks involved, and the practical utility of AI agents. Now, recent trends highlight the widespread adoption of generative AI tools like ChatGPT, but also the challenges in realizing the true value and potential and ensuring data security. This discussion today will provide valuable insights into navigating these complexities for businesses of all sizes. Joining us today are Rob Halasz, co-founder and CEO, and Tony Nicholls, co-founder and CTO of Great Ideaz, creators of trellispark, a platform to build secure AI-powered custom web applications. With over 15 years of experience, Rob and Tony are dedicated to helping organizations leverage AI effectively and securely. So, before further ado, let's get started. Firstly, Rob and Tony, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
Oh,
Well,
thank you.
thank you.
Great.
It's our pleasure to have both of you. Now, let's start the discussion by a little warm up, okay? Because as businesses, increasingly leverage new technologies, safeguarding data has never been more critical. Tony, let's start with you. What are the security risks for businesses using generative AI tools like ChatGPT with, especially when businesses have this fear of their data not being as much safe?
Okay, so first and foremost, if you're going to use some form of generative AI,
Yeah.
it's a black box, right? If you just push anything into it, you're going to get anything out of it. So from a security perspective, let's say, for example, I'm looking at medical records for Tony and Rob,
Yeah.
okay? When I ask the question, I want to make sure that only the Tony records are going in.
Right.
So one of the first things that you have to get right as an enterprise is you need to be able to have record level security. You need to know when I'm talking about the Tony records,
Yeah.
these are the only records that are being sent to my generative AI in the first place. If I've got the potential of Rob records being sent there as well, I'm in trouble, right? Because I've got no real knowledge of what that black box is doing. The other big security vulnerability that most organizations have, or a lot of organizations have, is that when they implement these chat clients, they implement them on a client device, like a phone or a website or a browser. That client device can be compromised. Okay, so ideally what you want to happen is that for the chat, the actual user experience to be on the device, but the actual interaction with the data and the language model and the agent to happen behind a firewall on a server, so that you're never sending data to the device where it could be compromised.
Very interesting. Do you have anything to add to that?
The only thing I would point out is that a lot of times for many users, we all have access to these chat interfaces, whether it's ChatGPT or it's Gemini or all these other types of just large language models that we can utilize. And the easiest thing for people to do is to pull a bunch of data out of the business, copy it, put it into that chat interface. Now it's in the public domain.
Right.
And so one of the things that we have to be very careful of and have some kind of governance around is what type of data do we need to keep protected and secured? And what is the user experience that we want to provide securely to our end users, whether it's staff internally or as far as external customers, to be able to actually make good use of that technology or the good use of the data with the technology.
Very interesting. Now, Rob, many large enterprises, have invested heavily in generative AI, right? But the results are a little bit mixed. The small and medium businesses, especially, are usually on a budget restraint, right? So, can you suggest some ways that, SMEs can make more intelligent use of AI, especially like platforms like ChatGPT, to achieve measurable outcomes, but without investing millions?
Yeah, I think what's interesting about that is you want to have very clear context and constrained information about what it is that you're actually asking questions about. So when we look at different types of utility for using these large language models in businesses, we're trying to figure out what is the business outcome that you're trying to achieve. And based on that business outcome, okay, what can we claw back to understand what the user interface needs to be, and how can we ask that in a secure way? So one of the things that you want to be able to figure out is the data that you have as an organization. You want to be able to have an ability to be able to have access to that information within a secure platform, where then you can have that dialogue directly. And that could mean that you're having a chat interface using an open ChatGPT type interface, or it could be one of these other LLMs. But you're having an ability to have a dialogue with your data within a secure forum, so that the security layers and everything else around the protection of that information is within the organization, and now you're actually able to have a more safer interaction with that information.
Very well explained. Hi there, business owners and tech leaders. Are you exploring the potential of generative AI? Remember, intelligent implementation and a strong focus on data security are crucial for maximizing its benefits and mitigating risks. Now let's get back to our conversation with Rob and Tony and unravel the mystery of AI agents. Now, let's talk about AI agents, okay? Because as businesses, look for ways to streamline operations and enhance customer experiences, new technologies like AI agents are becoming, our essential tool and more popular as well. So, firstly, for a layman, what exactly is an AI agent, and how are they, realistically useful for businesses today?
Yeah, I want to ask you a question then.
Okay.
So, do you use ChatGPT?
Of course, yeah.
Then you've used AI agents. So what's interesting about this is that when ChatGPT first came out several years ago, I don't know if you recall, but there was always this response when you wanted to ask it questions about current information, current things that were going on in the world. It would always respond back and say, "I'm sorry,
the data is only updated
to 2022 November," something like that.
Yeah.
Suddenly those questions, that response doesn't happen anymore. Now, when you go to ChatGPT and you ask a question,
it's up to date.
It's searching the internet.
Yeah.
When we talk about AI agents, what we are talking about is the ability to give AI utility, give it the ability to take action and actually do something. And so that is the fundamental difference. I mean, we can get into more of the technical nuances around AI agents, but at the end of the day, the simplest way to understand AI agents is you're giving it an agency. You're giving it the ability to actually go out and do something. Now, in the case of ChatGPT, it's actually able to search the internet now.
Right.
That is an agentic or an AI agent kind of transaction to be able to get that information and pull it back.
Yeah, and if I might add to that, I mean, we're not just talking about AI augmentation for something like, say, ChatGPT anymore. We're talking about what we call agentic web.
Yeah.
So, I mean, 20 years ago, when we invented the internet, we opened up a whole ton of business opportunities for doing commerce in new ways.
Yeah.
What we're starting to see this year is the emergence of something called the agentic web. So essentially, that's like another layer on top of what we're doing with the internet and commerce. So a lot of small businesses have already invested a lot of money into APIs or programmatic interfaces that can be accessed across a web, right? So what's happening with AI agents now is taking the case that Rob did and developing a little bit more, is that we're saying that an AI agent is a language model like ChatGPT. It's instructions on how to complete a task. It's a set of tools that you would use to complete the task, and it's a set of contextual data. So the tools might be things like book me a hotel room, schedule me a flight, Okay,
Right.
so this is, where the agent actually has agency to do something. So what's happening with Agentic Web is that we can now take the APIs that the business has already created.
Right.
We can put a wrapper over the top of that using something called the MCP protocol. I won't bother you with what it is. Okay? But what that does is it makes that API, it makes that investment the business has already made now open to a whole new level of business opportunity, the Agentic Web, where somebody who writes an agent that says, I want to book a holiday to France for 2 weeks to do X, Y, Z. Okay, now they can expose their business APIs to that agent so that as the user is interacting with the agent, they can now book flights and whatever through my APIs. So that's a whole new type of business. And the good news for everybody out there is these are just the APIs you've already written.
Right.
Right? It's not like you've got to spend millions of dollars to do it. You just put a wrapper over it and you've now exposed it, and your business can now interact with a whole new way of doing business.
Of course,
Wow.
there's governance and safety and everything else around that, but yes, absolutely, there's a lot of capabilities.
You both are making it sound so magical and so like dream come true. And also, if I may ask you, it might be a little off topic, but I read it somewhere. But if you're using the words thank you and please when you're giving instructions to ChatGPT, it's burning millions of dollars. What does that talk about?
The analysis of what you provide to the AI agent covers everything. It covers every maybe, perhaps, pleases, thank yous, all of the things that we do for courtesy. And when you look at a lot of prompts, maybe a third to a quarter of the prompt is, can you please, or would you have a look at, or can I, whatever, right? They're all the courtesies. And as you say, right, that's burning a ton of power in somebody's data center.
Very interesting.
So don't be polite to your AI, right? Don't worry about the rise
Oh.
of the machines and they're coming for you. Like.
Although tonality is another aspect of prompt engineering. So when you're actually asking questions, there's a lot of things that you can do to if you're just adjusting what you're asking or how you're asking the questions, you can have significantly different and better outcomes as a result of that.
Very interesting. Now, we'll be right back after a short break. Don't go away as we explore how a family doctor's use of AI technology exemplifies how AI can improve both efficiency and human outcomes in critical sectors.
Hey, you think you know UPS? Yeah, that's us. Everybody knows that. You know what you didn't know? This. Okay, try to keep up. Ocean, us. Ground, rail, air, so us. Guess who? Us. Customs cleared, borders cleared, done. Us. Still with me? Wait for it. Boom. Us. Intelligent, automated, fulfillment. Us. Yep, healthcare too. Digital your thing? Yeah, well, book it, ship it, track it. You feeling me yet? Yep, that's all us. That's all UPS.
Welcome back, listeners. Without further ado, let's get back into the conversation with Rob and Tony. Rob, you shared a personal anecdote about your family doctor, using an AI scribe.
Oh, yeah.
Let's explore, how that illustrates the meaningful impact of well-implemented technology.
Yeah.
How exactly does the story, exemplify the meaningful impact technology, when done well, can have, professional outcomes?
Yeah, this is a thing that is really, to me personally, I think is like really amazing.
Right.
And this, as to the point of that story, I went to my family doctor, and you now have a lot of clinicians, a lot of physicians that actually have access to AI scribes. And essentially what that tool does is you can have, as a patient, have a dialogue with your doctor. The AI is listening to that. It's actually composing a transcript of the dialogue.
Okay.
It has clinical understanding, so it understands clinical terminology and whatnot.
Right.
and it's able to distill that down into clinical notes. That's a summary that's presented to the physician. So what's really fascinating and fantastic about something like that is when we first introduced EMRs, electronic medical records, to doctors,
Right.
everybody thought, oh, this is wonderful, this is fantastic. But the reality is it actually lowered the actual patient interaction with the doctor, because the doctor could not have their eyes on you anymore.
Right.
Now they have eyes on a screen and
Screen,
they're
yeah.
taking notes.
Right.
And it also increased the cognitive load of the doctor. And this is something that's been so challenging for so many physicians. We have a shortage of physicians in the industry in general and across Canada. So now this doctor, she's like my family doctor, she's like, this is fantastic because
Right.
she can focus on the patient, and we know statistically that gives us better outcomes.
Yeah.
And she's able to see the summary and be able to, curate and make sure it's correct, and then move on. So she's saving time, lower cognitive load. So there's a lot of examples now, especially when it comes to knowledge workers, where the use of AI is just supercharging people. It's giving them the ability to actually perform their jobs much more productively and much more effectively, and with a higher quality
Right.
output. And so those are the things that we love working with businesses and different organizations and institutions to really figure out, dissect this and figure out what are the business outcomes, what are you trying to achieve, and then kind of distill it down into what is the appropriate tools that you can use to solve those problems.
No, but this is definitely a game changer tool, right, for businesses
Yeah.
integrating AI, especially with the data security. Do you have anything to add to that, Tony?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we found really interesting, and me as a developer, right? So I'm the
Yeah.
technical guy, right? I write code for a living, okay?
Right.
So the tool I built, obviously Rob had access to it, and one of the things he was doing as a demo for one of our prospect clients
Okay.
was flood risk analysis. Okay, so I mean,
Right.
obviously we have nothing in our data model for flood risk analysis, but Rob was able to take the tool that we had created,
Mm-hmm.
use our generative AI to
Okay.
generate a whole bunch of user experience form definitions and the fields and the sorts of information that need to be captured, turn that into a secure web portal without me even knowing, right? He just
Right.
sat there and did it, and he is not a technical person. Okay?
Right.
Oh, come
So
on.
he was able to configure
I'm somewhat
a
not technical.
a working user experience,
Right.
and then configure on top of that our generic AI chat agent,
Yeah.
so that it could securely take the information about a property and all of the flood risks and mitigations and insurance policies and all of the other data that you
Right,
would need
right.
to actually do it,
Hmm.
feed that as context into a chat agent with no code, right? He's written no code at this point, and we're talking about hours worth of work, not days or weeks,
Right.
hours,
Hours.
okay? And then he was able to pull that information in and say, well, okay, show me the next mitigation for this property. Suggest what the risk category of this property is.
Wow.
All in configuration in the space of hours.
It's giving you, it's funny because we talk about AI agents and having the ability to have agency. Well, it's actually giving humans agency. It's giving the ability
way,
for you
yeah.
to do things that you normally would never have been able to do. And this is what Tony's getting at, is you're equipping knowledge workers now to be able to do things like on their own,
Right.
independent of a lot of other technical challenges that they typically would normally have to have.
Very interesting conversation. Now, Tony, one of the most interesting features that you recently released is your trellispark platform, and it has the ability to configure a secure generative AI chat user in just a couple of minutes.
Mhm.
Please go ahead and explain how this works, and how exactly does it empower users with no context-aware AI interactions using their own data.
Okay. So we have developed trellispark
Right.
as a way of addressing the problem of I need to build an application
Mm-hmm.
that collects information from the user,
Right.
and potentially as a web portal where I have different types of users,
Mm-hmm.
and each of them has their own security context. So Tony's allowed to see Tony's records, Rob can see Rob's records. Okay.
Right.
So we built this as a product over the course of nearly 20 odd years, right? And we got to a point where we were doing that really well. So we have this really secure, really scalable, really robust approach for configuring data instead of generating code, right? So everybody else, when you talk about building an application, uses AI to generate code. What we do is we use AI to generate the user experience requirements. So what should the forms look like? what should you be able to do? Right? In the state of the record, should you be able to edit this or delete this? So we built this really cool tool over many years. And then we said, okay, a year or two ago, AI is becoming, important. And clearly it's going to have an impact.
Right.
How would we add or extend our ability to configure a user experience to include configuring common chat agents, right? So how would you actually be able to say, well, I'm on this record here, it's this particular property or it's this particular patient. How can I extract that record and all of its context, all of its child records, pull that into one simple context representation, so XML or JSON, to be able to feed that into an agent so I can now ask questions on it and do all of that as configuration. So what we did is we took a really good framework for building applications, and that framework already had secure context as a built-in capability. And then we layered on top of that, how do I record, ask AI, now I can do interactive chat to that AI.
So let me give you in layman's terms a little bit more as to like what some examples of what this means.
Right.
So let's say that a business has a very unique data set of information, and they want to create a web portal experience around this where their customers could log into this and they could look up information about, I don't know, invoices, and there's some unique aspects around those invoices or something. What we can do is without writing any additional code or anything like that, we can configure a chat in like a ChatGPT type user interface to that. And now you can ask, well, how many invoices have been submitted for this customer? And you can list that out. Well, how much was all of that? It will total it up for you. You can ask any types of questions about that, and you can have this analysis of that very specific set of data. And you're not talking about any other customers, you're just talking about this particular customer. And that's all contextually aware and engineered as a prompt that is being sent to your chat interface. So you have this ability to suddenly now talk to your data in ways that you were never able to do before.
Yeah. Another interesting example of this is we were doing it for one of our clients who's basically looking at healthcare integration. And they had basically a whole bunch of clinical records for patients, and they had like the chat configured, and they were, obviously doing chat with the data set they had. And then they had to add a whole new set of records or new type of records to the patient information. So they did that, and they go, well, okay, do I have to rewrite my AI now? Right? And the answer was no, they didn't. They just put in, the next prompt that was asking about and the information just flowed through.
Right.
So this is about the context aware, right? With the ability to configure the data structure and the user experience all in data, right? You can make changes to that data structure. You can add or remove fields. So things that take normal organizations weeks or months to go through a change cycle, a deploy, and a test cycle, you can actually do in seconds.
Yeah.
Wow. It all sounds like, very intuitive and powerful feature, and it is allowing businesses to, leverage AI within their existing data context securely and easily. So you guys are making lives easier for everyone. Now, when you guys started, 15, 20 years ago, did you imagine then how AI is going to turn up right now?
I think even a year ago, you wouldn't have been able to imagine that. And to be honest, I think very few people really have a true understanding of what it will be like a year, 2 years, 3 years from now, where it's going to go. I mean, there is a lot of hype, and you said it earlier, right? It makes everything sound like magic, okay? The truth is, it is not actually magic. It's just another tool in a toolbox. If you're building an application for a business, if you're trying to figure out what is the next thing that you need to build, everything you've been doing for the last 20 years has stayed the same. You've just got another tool that potentially can give you another capability.
And that's another element to all of this, is that this is an evolving universe. Things are changing very rapidly. And so when you're building different types of systems and technologies for your organization, you want to have something that is very flexible and adaptable so that you can swap things out. I mean, one of the things that we are constantly seeing now is this tug of war between all these different leading large language models. ChatGPT comes out with a new version, and suddenly it's now the most useful chatbot for certain aspects.
Right.
Then Anthropic comes out with another version, or Google comes out with another version for Gemini.
Right.
And so you want to be able to like switch between these models and have a framework that you can still do this in a very secure manner and still be able to take advantage of the next thing that's come out. Because this is evolving. It's constantly changing.
Right. Every day we're waking up to, news about AI.
Yeah.
And before we let you go, guys, who kept this name, Great Ideaz? And how was this inspired?
Oh, this is funny. So
Yeah.
Tony and I, we were sitting in, some restaurant somewhere.
Okay.
And the first name that Tony came up with was, well, why don't we call ourselves Good Enough?
Actually,
and we were thinking, so well, it's not very romantic, is it? I mean, if you're trying to achieve amazing things for companies,
right.
the last thing you want to be called is good enough. And so this is where we came up with Great Ideaz.
Yeah.
And of course, the reason why there's a Z instead of an S is
Right.
we were searching on the internet. Oh, somebody else already had Great Ideaz
Right.
with an S.
Z gives a little quirk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it makes it a little bit unique, a little bit innovative.
Right.
And of course, the domain was available and we were
Right.
able to register it and everything. So yeah, that's how we started the whole thing out.
Hmm.
But yeah, it was it's funny because after 15 years, everybody loves the name.
Right.
So
it's
we
very nice.
clearly we picked a good name.
Yes, of course. The more simpler, the better, right? Because
Yes,
it
absolutely.
stays with you in your mind. And
Yes.
also, you two complement each other in a very beautiful way. So
thank
before
you.
we let you go, guys, if there's any piece of final advice or key takeaway you have for our listeners, something that they should remember about Great Ideaz, what would it be?
Well, I think first off, when we're talking about AI
Yeah.
and this whole AI world that we're dealing with, start with thinking about the business outcomes of what you're trying to achieve as an organization. Start with that, and then put it into 3 buckets. The buckets of this is going to be manual. It's much more strategic. These are actions that I need my staff to be able to handle. These are the things that I can superpower and supercharge people with. This is the co-pilot kind of concepts, the ideas of like augmenting and enhancing people's productivity.
Mhm.
And then the third bucket, of course, is the one where AI is just doing things on its own.
Mm.
And in that situation, you want to be very careful, very specific, very narrowly focused. You're going to have a much better chance of success if it's a much more narrow and contained and constrained type of transaction that you're trying to do that's very repeatable.
Got it.
And we love helping organizations figure this stuff out. So I would say that for us as Great Ideaz, the things that we love to do is just to help organizations figure this stuff out, solve those problems.
Right. Getting the basics right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then empowering them with technology that lets them do it.
Yeah. And let's say for me, obviously, I'm the guy that builds stuff.
Right.
The advice that I would give anybody starting out doing this, security has to come first. You have to know on a row by row level who has access to any particular record. When you pull out that record to send it to AI, exactly what record and what context below it is being pulled out to send to AI. Because if you don't know what you're putting in, you've got no confidence in what comes out the other end. So security has to be baked in from the beginning.
Right.
Security, and also it's trust.
Mm.
One of the biggest challenges that we have with AI is for users to be able to trust it and to be able to have confidence that what they're actually getting back as information is actually trustworthy, and they can use it and make good use of it. So there's a lot of challenges with that, and there are a lot of things with AI where you just want to be able to really spend the time and figure out like what is it that you want to do from a governance perspective. Make sure that you actually have the right framework around what types of uses that you're actually doing with AI, where it does make practical sense to do that, where you're not creating significant risk to the business or to humans or to other scenarios of the organization.
That's valuable advice, both of you. Thank you so much for coming in for this podcast. It was an absolute pleasure having both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. That was an insightful conversation with Rob Halasz, co-founder and CEO, and Tony Nicholls, co-founder and CTO of Great Ideaz, creators of TrellisPark. We discussed how businesses can intelligently use generative AI, navigate security risks, and leverage AI agents for practical benefits. Great Ideaz is empowering organizations to build secure, AI powered custom web applications. All right, thank you so much for tuning in to the Canadian SME Small Business Podcast, and we really appreciate your continued support. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast for more expert insights and resources that can help your business thrive. Also, don't forget to visit our website, CanadianSME.ca. And lastly, a very special thank you to our podcast partners, RBC, UPS, A1 Global College, and Google for their ongoing commitment to empowering small businesses. Until next time, keep innovating and striving for success, and we'll see you in the next episode. Kripa Anand signing off.